Hey everyone, Ben here, and I am so excited to bring you my first Super Formula race of the new iRacing season as we take on the hugely tricky Fuji Speedway. This car sets a new benchmark for open wheel racing online. It's fast, it's agile, but it's massively challenging, especially through Sector 3 here at Fuji. This race was a top split session, so we're really up against it to secure a top half finish. Let's get down to the grid. Right then, waiting for the four lights, we're in the middle of the pack here, and getting underway in these cars is extremely challenging. You'll see I'm being ever so careful on the throttle. Those with a dual clutch setup have things slightly easier, and you can see a real mix of starts up and down the grid here. We're just going to keep it nice and tight into T1, hope that we don't get clouted from behind, and we've gotten through cleanly. I do though have Takahashi on my outside here. He's now going to have the inside for the next corner. You can see him in our rearview mirror. I'm going to have to give him space in case he lunges down the inside. That puts me right out onto the curb. We're still side by side as we come through the long high-speed right-hander. In the end, he has to bail out. I think there was a small amount of contact. We've now got Michael McCabe behind. Teruki Takahashi has fallen back behind him as well, although it looks like they're running side by side, and more cars running side by side up ahead as well as we get into the heavy braking zone of what is one of the most challenging sections of circuit that I think I've ever driven. The car, you have to just guide it through this switchback section where you're constantly off camber, going through rights and lefts at low speed. The car does not like it at all, and you can see I get a big snap coming through the left-hander. If I'd gone any further wide there, that curb would have sent me spearing across the track. Thankfully, I just held onto it. Particularly tricky, of course, on cold tyres and cold brakes. But as we came around there to finish lap one, let's take a look back at some of the action from the opening lap. You can see then running side by side with Takahashi. This was very, very close to being an accident. Thankfully, he pulled out. There was an accident behind us though, as Takashi Inari just clipped Sam Karasala into a spin, and then Takahashi challenging McCabe into this tight and twisty section. What a fantastic bit of racing this is, by the way, and Takahashi comes out on top, and he'll be the driver just behind us on track as we enter lap 2, and actually we rejoin the live action back towards that third sector, and I've just overcooked it into the start of the chicane there, and we're going to be coming under a bit of pressure from behind as Takahashi is recovering, and it looks like at this stage at least he is more comfortable in the cockpit. He's got more speed in his Super Formula car than I'm able to extract from mine, but we're coming through into the final corner, and it looks as if I've got enough of a gap back to him. I'm not going to be able to use my push to pass, the overtaking system as it's called here in Super Formula. I used it on the previous lap. You can see the bar on the left hand side of my steering wheel. It's recharging. There's a cool down period, which means I can't use it as we cross the start finish line there, and look in the rear view mirror. Takahashi thinking about a move, but he's just not close enough. He squeezes right up onto my rear wing. We're losing a little bit of touch with the top 5, but of course running in the top 6, this is still a really good position to be in the early stages of this race. But for now, I'm all about defending here from the driver behind us. Again, he's just looking to get an overlap through the very fast right-hander there, down into the very tricky off-camber braking zone, down into third gear, and then try and get the car straightened so you can get back on the gas. We had an alright trip through there, but again, it looked as if the driver behind was going to mount an overtake. Once more, he's shaping to the inside as we get down into the chicane again, and now we've got to brace ourselves for this very tight and twisty section. It's going to be exceptionally difficult for him to make an overtake on me unless I make a mistake, so I've just got to keep composed here as we come through the left hand, and look at that, he's made a dive. I'm going to have to give him space on the inside, but he hasn't been able to hold the car. Look at that, the lack of grip coming through the corner there, and he just pushed too hard to try and force the move. A pretty questionable judgment, to be honest, given the long start finish straight was just around the corner. He pushed too early to make that move. He could have had me probably on the next straight, but then look, as he's rejoining, a gaggle of cars comes through. They all have to take to that treacherous curb on the outside, and then Takahashi gets a whack as those drivers were battling with each other, and unfortunately for him, he would have to get into the pit lane and ultimately retire the car. We rejoined the live action on lap 3 then, and I've got a little bit of space now, both behind and up ahead, to just try and dial the car in, get everything up to temperature, and finally get comfortable in this race. I mentioned at the outset, I am absolutely in love with this car. I think it does set a new gold standard for open wheel racing online in sim racing. The car is fast, it's agile, you can really push it through the medium speed corners, but then you get into a section like this on the track and really you've just got to try and dance it through these corners, carry as much speed as you can but not overdo it. The good thing is the car communicates with you really well. But look at that, we got a message from the spotter and there's a driver off up ahead. That's Kaparis, he's gotten it wrong, coming through the left-hander. We'll see it now on replay. He's just going to get up onto that curbing that I've talked about already, and it just unsettles the car. That promoted me up to 5th, but then I had the very quick Christina Ryan behind me. Now I had a very good buffer of about 6-7 seconds, but lap after lap after lap she was taking at least half a second out of that gap, so I was having to increasingly push, and as we rejoin the live action on lap 9, the gap is now down to 3.1 seconds, and at this rate of closing, Christina will be on my rear wing by the end of this race, so I'm having to push here and I'm going to try and set a new quickest lap time. I know I can get this car down into the 122s. Can I manage to achieve that in race trim here and under pressure without throwing away what would be a fantastic result in a very challenging split? We're 2/10 up already on our personal best so far in the race, so this is looking good, and actually the gap is extending slightly to Ryan behind. I've just got to keep my concentration and push as hard as I dare through this next section. You can see I just float the car, clip a bit of the curb on the inside, stay away from the curb on the exit, and then this is easily the most difficult corner. We take an earlier apex, able to get on the gas sooner. We've lost a tiny bit of time there, but actually we're going to gain it back through the final corner, and I'm going to be able to use our push to pass as well, and you can see this is going to be a new personal best, and the gap to Ryan has opened out dramatically as well, so something must have gone on behind as we were setting our quickest lap of the race. What has happened to Christina Ryan? Well, let's get a look on the replay and we'll be able to see exactly how we opened up the gap, and it's a really crucial mistake here. Just running it out wide on the curbing, as you'll see, and that costs you so much time because if you continue to push then you will loop the car around, and so that basically gave me enough breathing space as we head on to the final lap to be able to just relax a little bit in the cockpit, be confident that I was going to be able to bring the car home in P5, and that represents a great finish in this opening week of the new Super Formula season on iRacing. Really pleased with that. We get a bump to our safety rating and our I rating. This is the highest that my I rating has ever been on iRacing, and here's the full classified results. You can see my pace overall was not bad, not as quick as the guys at the very front, but actually quick enough had we had perhaps a smoother opening to the race to have been fighting a little bit further up the field. But as it is, I'm really pleased with this opening weekend. There's going to be loads more Super Formula coming up as we get into the rest of the season, but if you're just starting out your iRacing career, maybe check out the video that's on screen now for some helpful tips of how to get going.